Shipwreck at the Bottom of the World, Chapter 17, The Cave. Before they could rest, Shackleton ordered the boat unloaded and beached. The men were so tired and their legs so swollen and painful that it took hours of staggering up and down the rough beach, into the water and out again. By the time they were finished, they had no strength left to drag the boat up over the rocks, and since there was nothing to tie it to, the men had to take turns throughout the night holding on to the James Caird's painter as the boat knocked and bumped around the boulders and the breaking surf. Meanwhile, Crean went exploring and reported a cave not far away. It wasn't exactly a spacious cavern, more an undercut in the face of the cliff with a curtain of enormous icicle screening the entrance. The 6 men spread their remaining sodden sleeping bags on the pebbles and fell down, huddling against one another for warmth. Over the next 2 days, the men concentrated on getting well. By this time, Vincent and McNeish were complete invalids and stayed in the cave in a stupor. The others, Shackleton, Worsley, Crean, and McCarthy, scouted around their campsite. They found coarse grass to cover and cushion the cave floor. At one end of the cove, an enormous pileup of wreckage from years of storms provided a steady supply of firewood, block and tackle, hatch gratings, spars, mast, lockers. It was a true ship's graveyard. At the end of the long fjord their cove was on, icebergs calved off the ends of 12 or more glaciers with a roar throughout the day that sent birds screeching up into the air. As the men's feet dried and the blood began to circulate, they all had the sensation of burning. One night, sleeping with his feet near the fire, Worsley woke up repeatedly, sure that his feet were actually on fire. The others insisted that they all felt the same and that his feet were fine. It wasn't until the next morning that Worsley discovered holes scorched in his socks, but the skin on his feet was still so waterlogged that it hadn't burned. Their hands and faces were all caked with blubber smoke, soot from the Primus camp stove, and dirt, and some of the men tried washing up in the snow. The dirt came off in rolls, Worsley said of his hands, but when he applied the same process to his face, he succeeded only in smearing the entire countenance with a more even layer of shiny black grease. Stumbling on painful feet, they explored the cliff faces nearby. They found albatross chicks, which made the most succulent stews in their hooish pot. An elephant seal or 2 increased their food supply. The men ate and slept. In the night once, Shackleton woke them all by shouting in his sleep, "Look out, boys! Look out! Hold on!" "What is it, boss?" Worsley asked him. Fuddled with sleep, Shackleton pointed at the black wall behind them. "It's just going to break on us," he warned. He's still caught in a dream of monster waves. After several days of rest, however, it was time for action. They could not linger in their cave all winter, dining on seal meat and toasting their feet at a driftwood fire. The men on Elephant Island were still counting on them. If they took to the sea again, they faced another perilous journey, 130 miles around the tip of South Georgia to the whaling stations. And there were serious doubts that the Caird could manage another journey at all. The pounding it had taken at sea and the scraping and bumping it suffered on the beach where they were had taken their toll on the boat. It was a mere shell, its hull scraped to the thickness of cardboard in some places. No, the men could not do 130 miles in the Caird. But as the crow flies, there was only 29 miles across the island. Shackleton and Worsley eyed the razorback ridges and glaciers that rose up into the clouds. No one had ever crossed South Georgia Island on foot. The Alps of the Southern Ocean were just as formidable as the mountain range, and they were unmapped. But for Shackleton, it was his only choice. He was tormented with the thought of the 22 men waiting for him. They were waiting for him, the boss. For months, they had placed all their hopes and their lives in his hands. He could not rest now, when only 29 miles separated him from rescue for his men. He would take Worsley and Crean and leave McCarthy to look after McNeish and Vincent. They would travel light. They would take no sleeping bags, planning to go fast with quick rest. They would carry sledging rations and biscuits for 3 days of travel. They would take the Primus camp stove and 3 days of fuel. They had an axe. They had 50 feet of rope from scraps knotted together. They had Worsley's compass and an outline map of South Georgia that showed the coastline in detail and a complete blank in the interior of the island. On May 18th, with the full moon shining at 2 a.m., the boss decided it was time to go. He roused Worsley. "We'll get underway now, Skipper."